أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خاتم النبيين وإمام المرسلين، نبينا وإمامنا وقدوتنا وحبيب قلوبنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المخلصين المجاهدين. وبعد, we are meeting today to discuss some issues which are usually discussed under so-called usul fiqh, the fundamentals of fiqh, the fundamentals of law. Fundamentals of fiqh meaning how to derive fiqh from that, because Quran has come in a language which is a language of the lawmaker, not a language of the fuqaha and the people who are writing law books. So you need to derive from there the rulings in such a way that a judge or a government can apply it. Sometimes it's immediately clear, rarely, but mostly it has to be deduced. And the principles of deduction are called usul fiqh. And there have been in the Islamic camp various disputes about certain questionable usuls and fundamental usuls which nobody disagrees. Fundamental usuls are Quran, being the revealed word, literal word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one has disputed that. And all the Ummah agrees also the Sunnah is in principle also an asl, a root where you can derive ahkam. Some who carry the name of Islam, but they are really not Muslims, who dispute that the Sunnah is in principle like that. This is clear kufr. Sunnah is in principle like that. Their argument is weird. They will never say Sunnah. Say the argument is that the Sunnah is not well established. There are plenty of fabrications. It's not reliable. So it's the matter of reliability comes up. But we have discussed in the book of Tawheed, and I think we discussed once, that if we attack the Sunnah wholesale, yeah, some hadith may be fabricated. Definitely. Some hadith may be weak. Some hadith, one phrase in the hadith or one word has been by mistake of the scholar or a lapse of mind has been crawling there. And amazingly, we can find out that by scholarly work, and the community of scholars have been never fooled as a community about that. And we discussed in a previous, I think, session also that the Sunnah is also as a dhikr, as a revealed dhikr, is definitely a revealed dhikr that is also protected. So their argument is faulty and can be refuted on solid historic and other grounds. Also on the ground of the Quran, very simply because the Quran has been delivered to us the same way the Sunnah, although by tawatur, and it's delivered in a natural way by people memorizing and writing, obviously a big number which cannot be all agree on error or fabricating deliberately. And a considerable part of the Sunnah is delivered this way also. But the most of it is ahad, and we have evidences from Shariah and from Quran that this is reliable and an authority until Yawm al-Qiyamah, in details which we are not going today. So the Sunnah is in principle, at least. In principle, nobody can deny that what the Prophet orders is like what Allah orders. Otherwise, if he that what his orders is not an authority, then if he claims this is the Quran, it's also not an authority. How can we trust that? Because we don't know that it's a Quran unless he says it's a Quran. Write it in that between the two covers. Otherwise, you don't know it's a Quran. Yes, it's quite eloquent and the style is quite different, but still, we have no ultimate. And some of it has been initially between the aerial covers have been removed as abrogated text-wise. Who said it's abrogated? Him. So if he's not an authority in that, he's not trustworthy in that, he cannot be trusted in anything else. So that's not possible. The Sunnah is a principle. And that is the issue of ijma', which has various definitions, but it's based on the fact that there are many narrations in the Sunnah and also some indications, not really well established and firm evidence in the Quran, that the Ummah cannot all agree on error. You could say this is because of the protection of the dhikr. That's a better argument from the Quran. The dhikr is protected. It will be protected until Yawm al-Qiyamah. So there will be bits and pieces of dhikr available. And part of the dhikr is the Arabic language. And there will be, at least in the whole wide world, at least one single person who understands it properly and find it. And so it can't be possible that the whole Ummah, until Yawm al-Qiyamah, then everyone is extinct. Then the dunya is over. So from that, that's not very much disagreement there. Only the issue what ijma' is a matter of contention, and there's plenty of discussions. The only realistic ijma' which we can really check, because their number is limited, is the Sahaba. Ijma' of the Sahaba. The consensus of the ijma' is consensus of the companions. Why? Because the companions are a number of people who can be controlled. It's well known. Even if you go to extremes, that even someone who saw the Prophet only in Hijjat al-Wada, in the farewell pilgrimage, just saw him as a Sahabi. This is the widest possible definition, because seeing him is a barakah by itself. Okay, admit that. Or this is not the definition of Sahabi like the Sahaba understood, because Sahabi is a companion, and there is someone who sees you in the street is not your companion by Arabic language and so on. But even assume that extreme case, and he's a Muslim and dies as a Muslim, as known publicly, as a Sahabi, the number will not be more than 120,000. Or when we Arabs, but few non-Arabs under them. So it's a well-controlled number, and they were all the nation at their time. At that time, obviously, until the time Sahaba expired, quite a number of followers, tabi'in, and even followers of followers were there as children. But at that time, nobody was even thinking or imagining to question the authority of the Sahaba and their fiqh derivations and so on. So whatever they agreed upon, nobody from the tabi'in would ever think or imagine to disagree with. So their agreement is the agreement of the Ummah at that time. Later on, we don't have this situation. We have the Ummah scattered all over the world. We have all kinds of new madhabs, deviant and non-deviant, coming along the way. And we have starting with the fiqh madhabs and people who are devoted to a certain fiqh madhab. Also should not be the way, but that's what has happened historically. So we will not get any ijma' here. If someone claims there's ijma', after that, he must be dreaming or lying. Except the things which Sahaba agreed upon, and every Muslim agreed upon, like that, for example, Salatul Dhuhr, when you are not traveling, is 4 rak'ahs. But who is discussing this? This is narrated so much that you don't need even the ijma'. So the ijma' just confirms things which are essentially Islam, and anything in opposition to them is kufr. So there's not much to derive from ijma'. The fourth one is qiyas, and there's some contention there, some considerable contention, and other things like blocking the means, etc. And if you look at these, it gives you the feeling that always with a qiyas, we have to make qiyas, we have an analogy, or we have to analyze a situation and see another comparable situation, and then deduce a hukm. It could have been two meanings. One, we have a specific situation here, because all that happens at the time of Rasulullah is a specific situation. There's no generality. Generality exists only in the mind. In reality, a Sahabi did that and that, the Prophet rebuked him. But there's a generality of the content, essentiality. He did not rebuke him because his name is Umar or Adi, or he's from Afghani origin or black origin. He rebuked him for this act. So that act itself is worthy of rebucation. And the act has an essential ingredients. We can read the linguistic what it means. Like, for example, I'm just giving an example. Someone was looking for a second wife into an aura of a woman. First look is yours because you may have a surprising look. But the second one, repeating the look, is against the injunction. But we know what is looking to aura, obviously. That's what's prohibited. But it's the general principle. Looking at aura, whatever defined by Shariah as aura, you should not look at it, is prohibited. So you don't need qiyas, it's just the generality of the principle. If there's a principle which you can generalize, or a meaning which has a general universalistic meaning. Some rulings have come with a certain illah, a reason for the hukm, and there are some specified that is the illah. Were it not for that, he would not have made the injunction. It's rare to have really the illah clearly specified like this. Some scholars say we can deduce it from certain circumstances, but let me give you an example where the Prophet clearly said the illah, and he stressed it. And amazingly, many scholars of fiqh did not bother with this illah, which shows that they are sometimes not serious or not really honest, or many of them. The illah is that Abu Sa'id al-Khudri narrates that he was in a trip, he came back, he missed Eid al-Adha, Qurbani, and he came home, and his wife offered him food with some dried meat, because they used to dry the meat and conserve it. And he said, what is this? He said, it's from Qurbani. You missed it here, and they dried it. He said, didn't the Messenger of Allah, in Glassy the year before, prohibit saving? Say either you eat, or you give it to the poor, or you give it to friends, but nobody should dry it and keep it. She said, yes, but he has permitted this year. He did not believe it, so he came into the Messenger of Allah and said, I came home, and that lady at home gave me meat, dried, and I remember very well that you prohibited saving from the Qurbani meat. It should be consumed. Said, yes, isn't true? She claimed you have permitted again. Say, yes, indeed. Last year I prohibited it because of the dafa, because of it was a famine, it was a time of shortage. I wanted everyone to have the opportunity to eat, at least in the Eid, some meat. But this year, alhamdulillah, khair and rain has come, so it is permitted. So the Prophet clearly said that this specific prohibition, maybe with him as a head of state, we could apply that to a head of state or a leader of a community. He prohibited that because of the dafa. There was a famine, and this. You should conclude that in the case of famine, the head of state could make an injunction that nobody should save food for more than 3 days at home, regardless for the public interest. You could go, but nobody bothered really deduce from that. This
is where these Maqasid guys could say.
That's not Maqasid. This is a famine. It is a famine.
But I've seen them argue this point.
Yeah, this is mistake.
Is he saying it as a head of state, or is he saying?
Independent of that, I'm not arguing about this point. But I'm arguing the following. Because he ordered that and then withdrew it. So the one after coming in, the one who has an authority to order and withdraw should be usually a leader of community, the head of state, or maybe a leader of a family. Someone has to order. And you yourself order yourself if there's no one ordering.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, how do we know? Someone else could argue, no, he's ordering as a prophet.
Yeah, fine. Then the moment there's a famine, you abstain from saving the meat. And you are obliged to
and then another scholar could say, no, he was ordering as a leader.
No problem. Whatever you adopt, this is the matter of ijtihad. We're not discussing the fine points. Discussing the illah, the scholars have neglected that. Nobody ever said that the head of state or you are obliged in the case of famine not to serve food. Or the hadith clearly said that he ordered it and removed it because of that. He said, because of the dafa, because there's a famine, because a need. In time of famine, you are not permitted to serve food. It should be shared fresh as much as possible. You could conclude from that. But amazingly, they just closed down. Ibn Hazm himself, who is against Illah and against Qiyas, said, look at this Illah, and they just struck it against the wall, which means they are not serious, they are not consistent. But it's very rarely you find something like that. You very rarely find something like that.
So you mentioned an example where they indirectly deduce an Illah.
Sometimes the evidences there around indicate that.
Okay.
Like for example, in the case when Allah ordered that the fight, which has not been taken by force, etc., in Surah Al-Hashr, that they would dispute with the Sahaba how to distribute the fight. Say this is not for use for Allah and His Messenger, for the needy and the orphans and the Muhajirin only. I did not give any one of the Ansar because they are relatively wealthy and it's 2 families which were poor. So only for those, because otherwise the money will be concentrated in the hand of the rich people under you. You could say this is illah, and also maqsad of Shariah, that money and wealth should be distributed evenly, that everyone will be as equal to the other as possible. And it's an obligation of the head of state, because this can be done only by a leader of community, to whatever income which has not taken by force, by the sword, by the fighters, which they deserve a certain share of it, and other shares go to the public treasury, all of that, because in the other one only a fifth goes. This one, all of it can be given to the state, head of state, or to the leadership of the Ummah, or to Majlis al-Shura, whatever, an authority to distribute it under the needy only, so that the rich should not become richer and the poor can improve their situation. So some scholars deduce it. I think it's a reasonable deduction, because Umar used that also in not distributing the land of the conquered countries and keep it as a waqf, as fixed property of the Islamic treasury until Yawm al-Qiyamah. So armies can be paid from that, so that soldiers can be kept under arms continuously for that, who are protecting the borders, etc. And that was Umar's argument. But this is again a matter of details, ijtihad. I'm just mentioning the general principle. As some consider there's no illah, like Ibn Hazm, there are 2 extremes, which are not good again, because everything which is extreme is usually having some fault in it, or some problem. But Generally, the attack of Ibn Hazm, besides saying there is no evidence Shariah that should make qiyas, or the make qiyas, is usually based on something in the people's mind subconsciously. It's never said consciously that somehow there is the gaps in the Shariah you have to fill. If there's no gaps, you don't need to fill, so you don't need qiyas. They say the events or the happenings in the world from the time of the Prophet after his death until Yawm al-Qiyamah are infinite or unlimited. They are not infinite, but they are not known in number in advance. There are so many events and so on until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And the textual evidences are limited in number. We have maybe 400 or 500 ayahs which contain some hukum shari, because most ayah contain stories about the previous nations, remind you of akhirah, preparing you for akhirah, tuning your mind to understand Allah in the proper way, etc. So they are connected with Aqidah and Khabar, but quite a number of them, maybe a few hundred, some people say 300, some 400, I don't bother about that, how much they are, but few ayahs from the 6,000 plus the Quran are connected to issues of Hukum Shari, and then we have maybe a correct hadith which nobody disputes, maybe 5,000, 6,000, some 7,000, something like that. And these are finite number of texts, and the events until the Qiyamah are unlimited, so you need to have qiyas, you need to have various things. But this is, if you look at that correctly, it's quite faulty, because there may be the individual events are unlimited in numbers, but the types of events is quite well under control and well known in numbers. For example,
but don't they say for all events that happen, you need an evidence for them?
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah. And you just take this kind of general principle, then we'll go to it. So if you look at the events, you can classify them in categories. Like, for example, a student sitting in the evening reading a book, preparing for the exam. Definitely the book read by this student for his exam in London today is not the same book read by Bukhari preparing for his for the interrogation by his scholars at this time, not the book read by a Chinese student in Shanghai, but they are reading books in the evening preparing for exam. It's reading a book to preparation for exam. This is type of event. Applies to millions of students over time, in time past, and millions to come in the future. So these millions are actually one case, reading a book for the exam. The same, for example, marrying, having intercourse with a woman. There are so many men and women gone, and many women and men to come, maybe still billions to come, most likely, because the end of times are still some good time down. So if you have now 5 billion, we would have several tens of billions until the world expires. But it is the same situation, the same intercourse. This is nothing exceptional here. There are various types of intercourse positions, but there are also 5, 6, 7, 8, 20, 50 positions. That's it. No more than that. It is not going to be a trillion of them. Yeah? So the claim that the events are unlimited or unknown is a wrong claim. The individual ones, yes, but the types are known, and all types of activities, of human activities, has already happened at the time of the Prophet and before. We have basic agriculture, basic industry, basic all kinds of human activity essentially at that time. Yes, maybe 10,000 back, we did not have really anything which could be called industry, and the Messenger at that time would not have any injunction about industries. But at the time of the Prophet, it was basic industry. In time, maybe before even the time of agriculture, people did not know agriculture, they were just hunter-gatherer. There was no agriculture, but there was agriculture. So there was agriculture, industry, was trades. They were traveling on camelback or the plane is essentially the same. It is traveling, using tools of travel. Has been improved, the tools and ways and means, but traveling is traveling, moving from A to B, and you need some kind of a mechanism or a machine or an animal carrying you there, and this needs certain regulations about travel. And so it's various types of travel, few of them. Some travel is for good purpose, some for bad purpose. You see what I mean? Classification will be actually ending with finite, few thousands of types of human activities, and then you can intermix them and make it, like contracts, for example. You have very simple contracts like buying a car, selling a car. You offer me your car, I give you £1,000, you take the pounds, and we move. But because cars is quite a complex entity for our modern times, and the state needs to know which cars are permitted and which are not proper, which have license number, what belong to whom. In modern times, you need to inform DVLA about the car registration and the change of ownership. That's it. But essentially, like buying camels in time past. At the time, you did not need to inform anybody else, because everyone knew what he has, and things were much simpler. So a bit of administrative work has been added, but that has been also at time of Islam. Some administrative work was needed at that, for example, to record people who are going into a certain ghazwa. When we called for a ghazwa, the people come and record themselves. There was written records for that. So recording and administrative things was there in a simple form, but it was there, started there. So we have general ruling for that. So if you look, we have really the infinite many or unlimited number of events they claim is not really unlimited, it's really limited in categories and types. Secondly, it's still in their mind, it seems to be there's a problem with the completeness of the Sharia. They admit publicly and they say, because Allah says clearly, "Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum," I have completed your deen. But somehow it is their subconscious that there's some gap in the Sharia there. They have to fill with qiyas and certain conclusions. And one of the main reasons for that is that they did not recognize some general rules that they have been. The Sharia has come with some general, very well general fundamental rules. They are so general that they almost encompass all activities until Yawm al-Qiyamah, plus certain activities with certain specific rules. And one of the most important rules, which has been not developed well, or sometimes developed theoretical but never applied consistently, is the rule is that the basic ruling about things and actions. I mean, human actions, which are subject to will. We are not talking about the heartbeat. The heartbeat is not under our control and we have nothing to do with it. There's no divine injunction telling you, hold your heartbeat or accept your heartbeat. This is physiology. That's not under your control. This is an event in the universe which we have no control about it. But I mean the acts of will, that the basic ruling is permissibility. That have been overlooked by many scholars. They said the basic ruling of things in the universe is permissibility. And the usual argument they bring is that Allah said He created everything in heavens and earth for you. So if He's created everything in heavens and earth for you, meaning go ahead, use it, benefit from it. If it would have been the basic ruling is prohibition, then there's nothing that then Allah is not graceful to you when He created everything. If He created everything for you, say this is all, when I give you a house, say this is yours, this is you. Meaning go ahead, take the keys, do whatever you want with the house. This is yours. You can't even sell it. You can't turn it into cash. You can't mortgage it with it. That's what it means if I say it is yours really. It's for your benefit. It's there. Otherwise it's not you. It's not yours. I didn't give it to you for it. Allah says it's for you, for your benefit. All for it. Or jami'an. All of it for you. So everything in the universe, unless Allah specified an exception, there are a few exceptions indeed, is permissible.
What if somebody says everything in the universe is permissible? There means everything is pure, not dirty.
That's absolutely right. The same if it is everything created for you.
Would you refute somebody if they said?
No, that's not refute. That's I found this, but that's correct. The basic things in the universe,
no, only they restrict it only to that.
No,
everything in the universe.
No, because it's for you. What's meaning for you? What is the meaning for you? If I cannot eat it, drink it, touch it. If it spills on my clothes, if it's a liquid that spills on my clothes, if I claim that it is impure, meaning I have to wash it, but this is a restriction from the use of this item, etc. So I have to have evidence for the restriction. So that evidence that everything is permissible, things, entities, not human acts. Because human acts are different than the entities. Human acts are relating to entities, but entities are separate. Like this wall, like this stone, like this sheep, like this animal. Permissibility should mean that I can benefit from it every way beneficial for me. I regard beneficial for me. Because it's for me, it's for you, as a gift from Allah to you. And means also that, including that I can't touch it. That if it touches my clothes does not become ritually dirty. It may become soil, for example mud, if it comes to your clothes, you will not feel happy unless you wash it. But are you obliged to wash it? Are you prohibited from praying? Is there an injunction of a certain ritual purity in that? No. It's the basic ruling about entity is also purity until proven otherwise in the Shariah that it is impure. So that conclusion, almost every scholar agree.
Is that a principle or is that an actual explicit ayah?
No, it's derived from the ayah. He created everything in the universe for you.
But does he mention the issue of benefit in there?
No, for you.
But we just assume that it means it's beneficial.
That's mean for you. You can look at it, you can enjoy it, you can burn it, you can break it. Do whatever you want with it. Unless he tells you, no, this is excluded. If it is for you, completely for you, for your benefit. What's mean creating for you? Because you are a finite being which have needs to enjoy with your eyes, needs to eat, needs to drink, needs to sniff it. If it is sniffable, yeah, eat it. If it's edible, you will judge if it's edible or not. Maybe it's not edible. But even is it permissible to eat mud? For example, some pregnant women have a desire sometimes, what they call this phenomena in early pregnancy, craving to eat some mud. And some scholars have discussed that mud is permissible for them. Obviously, until it has become harmful, then because you are prevented from harming yourself, but it's because of another Sharia principle. So, from that we can conclude that mud is for you. Do whatever you can do with mud. I want to burn it and make bricks. Go ahead, it's your right, no problem. Halal. You don't need to ask if there's a specific evidence that you can burn, mud or clay or make it hard and make bricks of it. There's no need for evidence that. This ayah is evidence enough.
Okay, so let me get this right. You're basically saying that because of this verse, it's so comprehensive, you don't need to start looking
for specific evidence
for every single action that you do.
Not action, every single entity and human action related to
that. You don't have to look.
So let us look at mud.
That's still an action, though, isn't it? I mean,
some action related to this. There are cases where not related to entities. We'll come to this. Let us go and try to go stage by stage. So
every action has an evidence.
We'll come to that.
Right, okay.
We'll come to that. We are not yet to action. We are just entities in the universe as they are. Obviously, entities do not make any sense that we have a human action related to them. Otherwise, what's the meaning they are for you? You have to do something with them. But also sometimes in their entity nature, they may, for example, let us look at the mud, normal mud or clay. I want to burn it and make bricks. By all means, go ahead and do it. You have the right to do it. You don't need to ask for the evidence. While working with mud, it may soil my clothing. Okay, you may not like your clothing having mud in you, and then you wash it because aesthetically you feel happy to wash it. But for example, some people say maybe it is impure in a ritual sense. I should not go to the mosque. I should not pray. I should not be in a certain state of worship with this on my clothing, like the Shariah made an injunction that clothes should be clean from certain things. So that you can enter into a prayer, otherwise your prayer is invalid. Is mud of this type? No. Unless an evidence telling mud is impure. So everything in the universe is ritually pure, not physically or medically pure. That's another issue that you can't judge by your reason, because the Sharia did not come to tell you about medical aspects or about beauty aspects too. Obviously, mud on your white clothes will not be nice. You will be washing it, but that's not what we are discussing. Can you pray in it? That's the question. That has to come by the Sharia. If this thing had come, it is pure, ritually pure. And it is permissible to use it in all possible means. So, this way, a good class of human actions have been also covered to be permissible, because if I cannot burn the mud or take the mud, for example, in an open space which is not owned by anybody, I can't take the mud there. Unless an evidence prohibits that. Like, for example, it belongs to someone, someone says land, and I have to take his permission. Maybe he will be happy that I carry the mud from his land, so he has more and even land. That's no problem, but you have to have his permission because owned by someone else. But otherwise, it's acceptable for you. If you go to the moon and find some good mud for building or for building rockets or other material, go ahead and use it. You don't need to ask for evidence. Can I use the moon material? So include it. You see my point. So that is all scholars essentially all scholars agree on that without much dispute. But when it comes to reapplication, you get some people stuck in certain points. Like, for example, but this is because certain confusion in their mind. For example, you find the Hanafi madhab does not like prawns and these what they call shell types of seafood.
Yeah.
Lobster and so on, is somehow disliked. But this is because of certain traces from Judaism. And the Hanafi madhab did not recognize that all previous Shariahs had been abrogated. Maybe that's the reason. I'm not sure if that's the reason it has crept like that. If that's not the reason, then it is arbitrary, because there's no mentioning of these entities at all in Quran and Sunnah, so they must be permissible according to the general rule, unless some Sharia evidence prohibits them, and there is none. Like, for example, some of the sea animals or land animals are poisonous. If the mountain know it's poisonous, you are not permitted to eat it because it will be harming you, and harming is prohibited, etc. So a good portion of human activities have been covered. But some scholar came now to other human acts, which are not necessarily related to entities. Like for example, thinking, or whispering, and singing, and so on, and things like that. And they said, because you are the slave of Allah, and Allah said, I did not create human and jinn except to worship me. Worship means submission. That's the real meaning of worship. Don't worry about these rituals and so on. People claim it's worship is some kind of rituals. This is wrong. We discuss at the book Tawheed, and maybe one day will come. But we'll keep pointing to that direction from time to time. So to obey me. So we are supposed to be obedient. And you are the slave of Allah, so you must be obedient with all your activities. So every activity of yours must be subject to His divine command, to the fact that you are His slave, His servant. So you need for every act an evidence. And then he said, admit that the acts related to entities in the universe have been already covered with the general evidence. But they go to acts which are not, like for example, the contract. When we make a contract, this obviously not related to entity, because we too are addressed under the divine command. And our contract is essentially some kind of an intellectual construct which has no physical entity in the universe. It's just an agreement between us. It may relate to an entity like a car selling and buying, but the formulation of the contract and the details of the contract is actually human interaction. Just let me give the cases of contracts. So that needs an evidence, because you are obliged to be the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it has to have the evidence, permissible and so on. Say, that's all right, absolutely right. You are perfectly right that it needs an evidence. Like the acts also related to the entities. There we have a general ruling in the Quran and in the Sunnah indicated that the basic ruling is permissibility, so all acts related to the entities, human act with that entity, is the permissibility. In this one, there may be a general ruling, there may be not. If there is no general ruling, then we have to have evidence for each act by itself. But my argument is that each act needs an evidence is a fundamentally correct rule. My answer to that, yes, absolutely right. And yes, you are the slave of Allah, and yes, you have been created only to worship. That's all, without any doubt, not even one shred of doubt. But there is general evidence that the basic ruling about acts, human acts, including contracts, is permissibility. Contracts also not only permissibility, that by necessity then validity, because if the contract is permissible, then it is valid, and if it is valid, it's binding, because a contract is supposed to be binding both parties. So when Allah said, "Awfu bil-uqud," fulfill your covenants or your contracts, meaning obviously the contracts which are valid. You're not going to fulfill a contract which is invalid or wrong or contain haram. That's very clear by necessity from the Shariah. So, but which contracts are valid? All contracts, unless the Shariah specifies otherwise. Which interaction between humans is permissible? All until the Shariah specifies otherwise. Maybe some of them are desirable, some obligatory. When I talk about permissibility, I talk about plain permissibility. You can do it, you can leave it. If you do it, you don't get any reward. If you leave it, you don't get any punishment. It's pure permissibility. I'm not talking also about the certain good intentions may turn something which is pure, may add an aspect of desirability to an act. Like for example, there may be a permissible act. You do it for the sake of Allah or to strengthen yourself or another obligatory or desirable act. Like for example, plain eating is purely permissible. But some people, while they eat, they choose the food in such a way that they strengthen their body, they keep their weight, they keep their energy at top, because he is planning to go to jihad. He's planning to maybe go and help some needy, and so put energy in that. This is all desirable or obligatory acts. So he gets reward for this intention, not for the mere act itself, but for the intention which has been now connected to that act. But this is also our discussion. Our discussion is that it was just plain acts as such. Pure permissibility. Sharia may come and make an act out of pure permissibility into desirability and obligation, or vice versa, on the other side, undesirability or prohibition. And you know the definition. Is anyone having any issues with the definition of desirable, etc.? The scholars of Sharia, because we're talking about Sharia from Allah, is not like the laws of government. Like governments do not have anything desirable and undesirable. You will not find the laws it's undesirable that you park here. If you park, you get a penalty. So laws and governments are usually having either obligatory or prohibited and permissible. They don't have the desirable and undesirable. The desirable act is the act which you do. If you do, you gain plus points. You are deserving of reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and praise. But if you don't do it, there is no penalty on you. So it's more towards the wajib side. The wajib is that if you do, it's like the desirable, you get reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but if you don't do it, you get penalty, you get you are worthy of revocation and punishment. We say just worthy because you may repent and then you are not. So say we cannot say you get punished because the punishment can be suspended. So you are worthy of punishment and revocation. And the undesirable is that if you leave it, an act, if you leave it, then you get reward for leaving it. But if you do it, you are not punished or not worthy of punishment. And the prohibited act is clearly the one which you do it, you are worthy of punishment and the revocation. And if you leave it, you are worthy of reward and praise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we said all related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one who rebukes and the one who rewards and punishes. Not anybody else. That's it. It's irrelevant if others happy with that or unhappy. It is all the Shariah nature in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He is the Master, the Lord, and you are the slave. So that's the definition. So the people who objected say every action needs an evidence by this objection, they are right. This is a fundamental principle. It is essentially another wording of the principle. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. No doubt about that. I did not create jinn and human except to worship me. No doubt about that. And then I'll say, وَعْبُدُوا رَبَّكُمْ. Worship your Lord who created you and the ones before. Yes, and worship me. Obey, submit. That's it. It has no other meaning. All other things that people think that is going to Hajj or performing Salah. That's the misconception. That's not what when Allah said, "Ya'budu Rabbakum," say, obey me. If I ordered you to go to Hajj, yes. If I ordered you to abstain from going to that place, then you abstain. That's it. One place is ordered to go there.
While we're talking about rituals, there are some people that say, okay, it's all well and good saying, and we do agree with you, that there are things in the universe, entities, and their actions related around them are permissible. But when it comes to acts of worship, quote unquote, it's haram.
Unless the Sharia make it.
Yeah. You need an evidence.
They put that as a rule, and this
comes more from the
Salafi background.
Yeah. They say everything is permissible, but when it comes to your Salah now, or when it comes to Hajj, or all of these kind of things, it's haram.
You see, the moment you mentioned Hajj and so on, you see how absurd the statement does not make any sense. The reason for this absurdity is that they believe there is some acts which are called act of worship by themselves as mere. So we are talking about pure human acts, act of will. There is nothing called act of worship unless it has certain characteristics. What is the meaning of an act of worship? What's the real meaning?
I thought an act of worship is praying and making dua.
No, dua, making calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
But I can make dua to you, come to me.
Okay.
Sujood is sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This act of worship.
No, he's talking like supplication to a high being.
Is it?
Yeah, we'll come to that. But the mere supplication, calling someone, because supplication say, "Oh Allah, help me." And the Rawani going to see someone and say, "Throw me in the rope, please." He's also making dua, making the call. In Arabic, dua is the same like to a call. He's making the call. That we have the first specific supplication when you are supplicating to the divine being. This is a specific word already loaded with certain meanings. But I'm trying to go to the core of the issue. Let's go for sujood, for example. If you make sujood to as a Muslim to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're making an act of worship. No doubt about that. Nobody will argue with that. If the Hindu comes and makes a sujood to the idol of Shiva, he's making an act of worship towards Shiva. But what happened then when Allah ordered the angels to make sujood to Adam? Is He ordering them to worship Adam? It can't be. Adam is not a divine being. So what was that? It was sujood of honoration, to honor Adam.
Okay, so you're saying they're all the same acts.
As mere acts, there's nothing called worship and worship. An act of worship or an act can be called worship if it is directed toward the entity you believe it's divine. Now, directing to entity you believe it's divine, to express your honoration, to express your respect, etc., can be, if we want to be a little bit hair-splitting, if this divine being is unaware about you and absent and remote, like some believe, like for example Aristotle is believing of Allah the Almighty, then that act would be essentially for you to have the pleasure of honoring this enormous being which is busy with itself and not concerned about anything else, according to Aristotle. So this is based on your own rationalization, because that entity is not addressing you and not talking to you and not bothered about you. Should not be bothered, according to Aristotle. The first one, he called the first, is only concerned about looking at himself and admiring his own perfection. And the whole universe is evolving, trying to develop to become closer in perfection to that divine being. Such a divine being, if it is the truth, but it's not the truth, this is false. If you do an act of worship, that's what pleases you. But we're not discussing such an entity in Islam or any other religion, because evidently that's not the way Allah has been described in the Quran and Sunnah. He has described that he created humans, and he described himself created man and jinn, humans and jinn, to worship him. So he wants you to submit to him, to obey him. That pleases him, that you obey and submit. And displeases him if you rebel like Iblis, and you out, red card, kick out of the heavens. So if it is so, then you do that not only to satisfy your internal desire of finding peace and tranquility and fulfilling the need, like you eat to fulfill the need of physiological, but sometimes you admire a beautiful item just to fulfill a basic need of admiration of a beautiful item. You do it to please this entity, and you know this entity is aware about you. So you do an act towards an entity you believe it's divine, whatever act it is, maybe sujood, maybe supplication, knowing that it will be pleasing to him. That will be the main purpose of dunya. But how do we know that it's pleasing for this entity? You may have a guesswork, but let's assume if we want to be rational and strict. How do we know? Only if the entity tells us, I am pleased with this act.
Okay.
Do it for me. Either in a desirable way, or if you don't do it, I'm going to punish you. Like Allah says, if Allah has made an injunction on you to perform Hajj to the holy house in Mecca. If you are capable, وَمَنْ كَفَرْ, who denies or rejects that, Allah does not need the creation. Don't think I need it. You need it. It's for you. But it's an obligation. You need it to fulfill your slavery, to fulfill your needs to be a slave, but I will be pleased with that. So he's telling you clearly it's an obligation. Yeah? So he has given you a clear injunction, it's an obligation. So an act of worship directed toward a divine will make only sense if the divine is pleased with it, either as a desirable act or as an obligatory act. So the problem for me should be, Allah should not be approached or attempted to be pleased from his servant, except what that he has ordered you to do in an obligatory way, or made an injunction to do as a desirable way. So by definition, already the desirability or obligation is there. Already. In other terms, it has to be in a certain Shariah and a certain revelation telling you to do that. This is desirable, like the Salat al-Nafila, the extra prayer, or wajib. Otherwise, it is not. You did not do your duty with act of worship. You may have been a philosopher like Aristotle, is just expressing admiration, but that's not what the Shariah is about. The Shariah is about is that what pleases Allah, what displeases Allah, or neither nor. That's the Shariah. The Shariah is related to Allah. So, Allah should not be worshipped. No rites and no acts should be performed with the intention to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, unless we have an evidence from Him that it's pleasing Him. Either it's obligatory or desirable. So meaning that the statement that the basic ruling about acts of worship is prohibition until an evidence comes is empty, does not make sense. There is nothing called act of worship. The moment you say act of worship,
so basically,
the moment you say act of worship is only desirable or obligatory. So what's the meaning? The basic ruling of so already the ruling is there.
Okay.
It's only the moment you say the word act of worship, meaning it's either desirable or obligatory. So what is the fuss about saying the basic ruling? There's no basic ruling whatsoever. It can't be an act of worship until it is desirable or desirable or obligatory. That's it.
So are you also trying
the way he specified?
Yeah. Are you also trying to say then that business, doing it the way Allah wants to please Him, is a worship in a way, ordering?
That's worship aspect in business, because you do business, for example, you do a financial transaction to gain money, to get wealth, to get money. That's the purpose of that.
So you're saying
that's not like sujood, not like making sujood towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's purely to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to come close to Him.
Right.
To feel His presence, to enjoy communicating with Him. knowing that he enjoys and he's talking to you, even if you don't hear it, you know it's still communicating with you, according to the hadith. So this is in the case of what we call rites of worship or rites or rituals. In that they are devoted to the divine purely. They have no other purpose. The other one, they have an aspect. In that doing business, it will be stupid and irrational to do business in which you lose money. But you do the business according to the injunction of the Shariah, avoiding the prohibited contracts, avoiding the prohibited goods and services for sale. Some goods are prohibited, like for example pig for Muslims, like for example alcoholic beverages are not only prohibited to drink, prohibited to sell, which will not make many people who are listening to us quite unhappy, prohibited to carry, prohibited to even plant with this purpose and intention, etc. Even if you squeeze the juice knowing it will be going for khamr, this is a kabira and haram, and you are cursed for that, all of that's prohibited. If you avoid that, consciously knowing this is Allah's injunction on you, then by this consciousness you are submitted to Allah Ta'ala and you get a reward for that consciousness. But for the act itself as pure act, it's permissible. So, make a distinction between that. So there are acts which are devoted to the divine, but we are talking about Islam. The divine being in Islam is well known to be a being which created the universe for a certain purpose, but at least a conscious being in the universe, humans and jinns, to worship him, to submit to him, to accept him as a Lord, and admit that they are slaves, completely and unconditionally. And there are certain acts they may want to do to please him. But it's not befitting for a slave to please his Lord without the Lord telling him, this is pleasing for me, or this will be a transgression. You will be going overboard. You will be transgressing your limit. You have to have from your Lord telling you, maybe even the normal masters in dunya, they have their own households. One house lady, the servant is working there, would like to have the house cleaned this way with these materials. If you go bring another materials which you don't like, or some material who has another smell, she prefers something like the cleaning material which are like lemony smell, and this one gets pine smelling material, she will get fired out of the house. Although she had the best intention. Why? Because she did not ask the lad lady, do you like the cleaning materials which is pine smelling? You have to know what the lad lady wants, because you are supposed to be serving. So the moment you say an act of worship in the proper definition, it is intended to please the divine, which is in Islam only one, Allah the Almighty and Exalted the Majestic. And how do we know it pleased him? He must have already made an injunction that is desirable or wajib, as an act, as a mere act, like sujood for him, Allah for him, like sujood al-shukr, like sujood inside the salah. Yeah, etc. If it is so, when I make a rule like the basic ruling about acts of worship is prohibition, it's just a statement which is absurd. Like if I say the square circle does not make any sense. It's linguistically correct, doesn't make any sense. It's not a rule. There's nothing. There's nothing to this said.
Could somebody also say the whole of the Shariah is an act? It is the worship as well.
Yeah.
And you're kind of saying that in Islam there are some things that are acts of worship. Then what happens when you finish that act of worship? You're not worshipping anymore.
No, you worship continuously because worship in Sharia, mean obey me and recognize me as their Lord, and that they are happy and content to be my slaves. That's the meaning of the real worship. But there are certain acts which are purely devotional to the divine being. That's what they mean by ibadah.
Okay.
They don't mean selling a car, obviously. They don't mean that. Because selling car is permissible. But if you find the selling car say, I'm doing it correctly according to Sharia and Allah has permitted me to do, I am happy that Allah permitted to me and I will not violate Allah's command. This consciousness you get a reward. This is the spiritual side of it. But the act itself is not an act, is not a rite.
Let's go into the actual rite itself.
But the rituals, when they say, what they mean is that the rituals of worship, the basic ruling about them are prohibition. But they are not defined as rituals of worship until they are already coming with an injunction by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be permissible or to be desirable or wajib. Otherwise they're not rituals. They're just bodily acts which are directed nowhere. Or even violating your obligation to obey your Lord and ask him permission to do things like the cleaner who is using pine smelling cleaning material instead of the lemony one, and they get fired by the landlord. Fine, it's very good for another lord, not for this one. Yeah. For example, a Muslim will never come and go to the masjid and light a candle there, because there's not one. But in church, that's an essential part of worship in the church. And it may be the injunction in the Shariah of Isa and Musa. Maybe, I'm not sure about the details, fine details, but for them it's an act of worship. They feel happy about that. But you go in the masjid and you bring an incense and perfume the masjid, because purifying the masjid and make it good smelling is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I just want to ask a question here, to kind of jump into it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the issue of buying and selling a car.
Yeah.
You use it throughout. So the discussions we're having is a series of usul.
Yeah.
It's for the scholastic community, those who are quite academically apt.
But also the common public should be able to understand that. And
a lot of people, majority of Muslims, it's, from my own assessment, it's safe to say that they haven't read the book of Allah, they haven't, and if they have...
they are negligent, they should.
Yeah,
this
so
is so fundamental,
the
they should know that's the reason we are doing that.
So the Ummah generally is not well educated, they are quite ignorant.
They have to be. Everyone should be ignorant.
Exactly, but people are coming back to Islam.
And the situation is so catastrophic, meanwhile, that you will find many Muslims who think the only say this man is involved in ibadah. And if you check what they mean with that, what they mean with that is that he's going every year to Umrah, he's regular in the masjid, but he is can be very well cheating in his transaction, can be very well selling khamr in his shops. There's not about that. This seems to be unrelated to being abid or ibadah by many of them.
But Dr. Massari, but you're right, people are getting a misconception, but people are coming back to Islam. Now the problem is when someone comes to Islam, they recognise that they have to worship, they realise that there is a hell and there's a heaven, but now they don't know what to do. So in their day-to-day life, they can't stop and ask a scholar or an academic, or they can't read all the books in the world because they have to function as a human being.
Yeah.
So how do they know what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do? If they're going to buy and sell a car, for example, do they have to call up a sheikh? Do they have to,
no.
Do they have to go to a book? Do they have to, do some research to do?
If they are completely ignorant, if
that's a very good question.
Depend upon the level of ignorance, but if it's clear that most human activities, as we said, will develop further. The very basic rule is permissibility, that they can be quite safe that most of activities they are doing in life are permissible. That's the first step. That does not mean that they have...
But when should the alarm bells start ringing?
That's obviously... you have to have some basic education about what's permissible.
But it's all subjective, though, isn't it? It's subjective how much you know and how little you know.
No. I think most people will be able, because the prohibited activities.
You're making a very blanket statement. There are a lot of people that I know are very good Muslims.
Level of ignorance.
They know very little.
Yeah, but they are generally you think they have no it, but they know very well. For example, that trade is permissible. They know that usury is haram. They know that few muharram. For example, in business life, most of contracts and transactions are permissible.
There are many Muslims who take interest money, and they say, as long as I'm not taking a loan, but they give me interest into my account, it's fine.
That's based on certain fatwa of mistake of a scholar, but they are not doing it unaware about what's going on there.
But the fact of the matter is, they did refer to a scholar.
Yeah.
So is that my obligation? Every single thing that I do I have to now refer to a scholar?
Let us subdivide the history before coming of Messenger ﷺ, before coming the revelation to the people who are addressed by that revelation, like the Arabs. The Arabs were not obviously properly addressed by the revelation of Isa and Musa, because they are not from the Bani Israel. And according to the correct point of view about Isa ﷺ, he was sent to Bani Israel, not to the Arabs or other nation. They have their own messenger, which is Ismail, long ago, but this fell in darkness, and the information available and the books available are all extant, so there is not sufficient evidence for them to be obliged. Let's assume there are people who call fatwa, break, time where there is no prophethood. What is the basic ruling of action in that time before the messenger has come? It has no ruling. There's no permissibility, it has no ruling. But human beings have to function, so they function according to reason, desire, nationalism, tribalism. Some of it is good, some of it is bad, some is productive, some is counterproductive. They live just their life like especially like non-responsible animals. But animals with obviously quite a considerable amount of common sense and mental capability and free will, and they can synchronize their life according to material benefits.
So you're basically saying when the
before the messenger
prophet emerged from day one,
yeah,
everything would have been permissible.
Yeah. Now, especially in the case of Muhammad, with the evidences which we did not mention in detail, everything is permissible, and then the messenger will just point to you along the way. This is not permissible. This is not permissible. This is not permissible. This is obligatory, until his message is delivered completely.
So basically, from day one, maybe the basic thing you would say is, what's obligatory for you is to say there's one God.
Yeah, that's it.
And everything else goes.
And acknowledge him as my Lord and Master, acknowledge that he has the right to make whatever injunction he wants.
You're saying murder, prostitution, lying, killing. I'm not saying that they went out and desired to do that rampantly.
It was an open license.
From
open license. All your contractual obligations are valid. Your marriages, which you have been doing before Islam has come or before the nation has come, are valid, and all contractual obligations are binding on you because they are originally permissible, but because the contract starts to be fulfilled, this the way that we see the Messenger of Allah in Mecca and the Sahaba has functioned. They never went to the people of the book, which refuse and completely annihilate, besides the other evidence we have in the book of Tawheed, that the previous Shariah is our Shariah. They have never asked a Jew or Christian about anything at all.
So you're saying generally they just went about their daily...
The same way they were living before Islam.
Okay. Their names, their clothes, their customs...
Except if the name is a shirk, then they change it.
Right,
because the basic Tawheed is only one God. So if someone is called Abdullah, he will be changed to Abdullah. It's very clear. It's immediately. But other things came in their due course. Later and later, bit by bit. And also there are other evidences for that.
Well, what if somebody argued, like someone did once with me, he said, no, when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came, everything, lying was prohibited because you follow the Shariah of the previous prophets.
No. This is,
and that's what made it.
This is a catastrophe. This is a real.
That's what made it.
This means because the Sharia of the prophets is not even binding for the people of Makkah. The Sharia of Ismail is extinct. Nobody knows what's it. The Sharia of Musa is not addressing to them. So if by accident a Japanese maybe there was a Chinese passing the Arab Peninsula, I say, come on people, Musa is not even addressing me at his time. So I was supposed to be addressing me now. You have a contradiction, and especially since Muhammad is sent to all mankind. This even makes things worse.
So you're saying when the Hanafis say that we have to follow previous prophets,
is actually strictly speaking, I would make a very strong statement. I think the Hamid of a scholar outside will be quite shocked. If it's someone after seeing our evidences and comprehending them say that, is a statement of kufr. Because Muhammad is not sent to all mankind. So let's see a Chinese Hanafi. He will tell you, come on people, if Musa was not even addressing me at that time, I had maybe Confucius. So I suppose not to eat shellfish. Or the right has dislike. You have immediately a contradiction in the Sharia. So it has not come from Allah. Must be something coming from the devil then. It can't be. It will contradict immediately the meaning said قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ إِنَّ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ إِلَيْكُمْ جَمِيعًا. It's immediately. So how can the Sharia of Musa be applicable to the Chinese or the Japanese? To the Jew maybe you have an excuse. But he's sent to all mankind with the same Sharia. So the Jew is supposed to be like the Chinese. So we have Chinese having the Sharia and the Jew of Sharia and the same Sharia. This is impossible. It doesn't work. It creates immediate contradictions.
So you're basically saying
it can't work. But the scholars did not think about that. They are excused.
The Chinese right now, the Chinese of today, were not even addressed.
Even at the time of Musa, they were not addressed by Musa.
By the time of Musa, so they
were not even. Only the Egyptian and the Israeli.
They don't have to follow.
Either they have their own prophet or they have no prophet. Allah knows how we manage them Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's his business. But they were not addressed by Musa. So how come Musa is suddenly now addressing them? You may say there's general prohibition, like prohibition of lying generally. Yeah, that's what I say. Then the messenger have told them right away, you don't lie. With Quran, even the Makki Quran mentioned you should not associate your body partner, should be kind to the parents, etc. So he was telling them these, but they are basic things from the day one, maybe, of a few first days. And also Ja'far telling telling Najashi, this messenger has come prohibiting us fawahish, prohibiting this. So on first day he told him, this is haram for you, it's halal. That's very clear, there was a prohibition from first day. He did not rely sending them to the Jewish scholars or the Christian scholars, because it will be impossible. It will create immediately a contradiction.
But you mentioned that everything in Mecca for the Sahabi,
they lived like they used to be before Islam.
Fine, except for burying the daughters alive.
That's because of prohibition they were taught.
So there were some prohibitions or something.
Oh yeah, there were. I'm not saying there were none, but basically what were they doing? They were permitted unless they are told not to do, and they may have been told from day one. The scholar did not give a list what we said. We have in the Quran things which are mentioned there. The main injunction, like the 10 commands, are already in the Quran, in the Makki Quran. How early in the Makki? Maybe it's articulated in the Quran in Surah Al-An'am, which came maybe in the 4th or 5th year, but maybe the Messenger told them from the day one. I have come with this is worshipping Allah alone, be good to the parents, don't lie, don't fornicate, don't do this, don't do this. Maybe he gave him 20 injunctions. You can give it in one session. That's not a problem. But there was no wudu, there was no salah like the one we know now. Well, that was not, we know that. So that was all the deen. And anyone dying at the time has a complete deen. So all that Allah ordered him at that moment.
So you're saying everything was permissible, and then there was a gradual prohibition of things. Okay.
Or a gradual obligation of things.
An obligation of things.
Yeah. There was, for example, Salah was not obligatory. Siyam was not obligatory. Islam came later. Hajj came much later. Jihad was prohibited even. They were ordered not to fight. Kufu aydiyakum. Don't even lift a sword. Even in self-defense, I think it's Zubair has a fight with a mushrik, and then he took a big bone, a jawbone of a donkey, and struck the mushrik. And Zubair is a very tough man. So the mushrik was bleeding and ran away. And he told the Messenger of Allah, this man insulted you, and they have with him a fight. So he said, may Allah reward you for that, but don't do it again. Don't do that again. We are not ordered to fight yet. So and the Quran says clearly, don't you see those who have been ordered not to fight? So they hold your hand back, and then when jihad was made obligatory, they say, why Allah has made jihad obligatory? If we would have left without jihad, we would have a longer life or something. The Quran answered this issue of longer life and ajal, etc. So that's the way it happened. But my point is that to just get the general ruling strictly clear in hand is that they were living like before Islam. So that means, and the Messenger of Allah addressed them with certain issues, but the other issues are, in addition to that, they never went to Jews and Christians, so the previous Shariah were gone, and by rational necessity, the Shariah must have gone. Otherwise, Islam would be contradictory and not from Allah. Nothing from Allah can be contradictory. Thirdly, that's because the argument built in that he's the final messenger, that he's sent to all mankind, etc., plus certain prohibition of taking anything from the people of the book, etc., all will work together to make the construction of the abolishment of previous Sharia absolute and unrejectionable and undeniable. But this is discussed in detail in the book of Tawhid. So let's assume that's well established, that they were living the way they were living before Islam, with the modification which Islam has brought as they come along, and maybe some injunction were from first day one brought to them. Well, this is not an issue.
So basically, if everything is permissible, and you've got a limited amount of prohibition
and desirabilities and obligations,
and a limited amount of obligations, not on, everything is either prohibited or stop action kind of dictionary. So you're basically saying after the Prophet died,
so let's do it. A very important aspect which we maybe don't get time today to discuss, but maybe in another session, is that the Prophet ordered the people not to bug him with questions and go back and forth. And he said clearly, with the correct hadith, which would maybe read later or leave it to another session, he said here, leave me as long I leave you. What destroyed the people before you, that they were going back and forth and back and forth with their prophets. If I order you something, do whatever you can. If I prohibit you to do something, then avoid it. But leave me otherwise. Another hadith, this is Bukhari. Another hadith says, don't think Allah has made in His book clear what's haram and what's halal. The Prophet says the word of book of Allah, meaning also His Sunnah, because His Sunnah is part of the book of Allah, except by the donkeys of Quran. We don't go to address them. I'm fed up addressing them and repeating that, because the Quran will become contradictory then if the Messenger of Allah, who tells us that's Quran and other statements are not acceptable. This just be absurd. Anyway, Allah did not forget, but He did not make an injunction out of mercy. He looked over it. He just stayed away from it. Don't think He has forgotten. Rahmatan bikum ghayra nisyan, not forgetful. He knows exactly that He could have been rejected, and He did not do. Out of mercy, this afu. And some people say, yeah, this afu is not halal. Come on, people. If afu is not halal, if forgiveness is not halal, what is it then? Tell me what's it. If it's obligatory, He should have ordered you. If it's desirable, He should order you in the matter of desirability, but not punish you for not doing it. If it's haram, should abstain from it. So if He doesn't address it all, what is it then? For God's sake. Leaving you to haram and not punishing for you, what's the meaning of it? He is the one who punishes and rebukes. So if He doesn't address it, what does it mean? It's mubah. And what's the meaning of them saying, Allah said, don't bug me. Don't come back and forth. What I've ordered you, do it. What I prohibit you, avoid it. And don't ask about other things. And then He says another place, threatening. The one of the worst, biggest sinner is the one who asked about something which was halal and was prohibited because of questioning. Alhamdulillah, nothing like that happened in Islam, inshaAllah, for various evidences. One is that if it would have happened, the Messenger of Allah would have said clearly, this is prohibited for you as a punishment for you, because you asked too many. And luckily, the Sahaba rarely ask anything, very little ask questions. And even Abbas mentioned this, the best companions of any prophet were the companions of Muhammad. The Quran records only about 10 questions. If you just check the story of the cow with Bani Israel, how many questions they were going back and forth about just one cow, then you know the virtue of the Sahaba and how they comprehended that. Yes, few people accept, like people coming from outside Medina for a short time, like delegations, they need some information, they were permitted to ask. People who give bay'ah in Medina, when, for example, Nawas bin Sa'ad said, I stayed in Medina. It's a very interesting hadith. I stayed 1 year without immigrating. What is in Medina? What do you mean without immigrating? Without giving bay'ah and becoming citizen. Because if someone gives bay'ah, the Prophet take on him in the bay'ah not to ask. So I wanted to ask at Hayat Ribata, and there was a foreigner. I was in Medina, but I was a foreigner. Meaning, hijrah, meaning carrying the citizenship of the state. It's not being physically there. He is physically there for a year. Until I ask every question coming in my mind, and the last one who is struggling, if there's any question, I ask him about virtue and evil. What's it? I say virtue is that what your heart is content, and evil is that what you feel that heart is rejecting, etc. For now, the famous hadith. So that was the last one. Then I gave bay'ah. I became citizen.
So Rasulullah put condition on bay'ah so that they don't ask.
Yeah, they don't ask. You leave that only for the Bedouins, the one who coming just casually. But the one who says they cannot. And he kept 1 year, 1 full year. He was a foreigner in Medina, not immigrating, as he said, expressed himself. Just to have this opportunity to ask. And they used me sometimes to give bribes to Bedouins coming to ask questions on their behalf, if they want to ask questions, etc. So this is very clear that what does it mean? We say, leaving him committing haram and leaving wajib, it can't be. Otherwise he's not commanding all the 4 days. That's not really fulfilling his obligation as a messenger of Allah. He's exactly fulfilling and telling us clearly that do whatever you do. If it is, and some people say, okay, there is some fine points there which are also causing some problems for some scholars. Even people like Ibn Hazm, who is the anti-qiyas and so on, commits that mistake. I argue, because of that, actually the bayan is not on the messengers. Allah took the bayan himself. As it is, it's elaborating and explaining it. So Allah is the one who explains. And Allah who instructs His messenger to give commands and so on. Allah who reminds the messenger of things which he may have not been conscious about. And Allah who put in the mouth of His messenger, like I say, I have seen all types of people of hellfire except 2 types. One woman who are dressed and undressed, and they walk in a certain way, you know the hadith. And men who have whips in their hand beating the people in the streets. These 2 types of the hellfire people, I have not seen them yet. Why He is telling this? This is obviously also to stay for us as a sign of prophethood in the future. But independent of that, why saying that? Meaning these are grave sins which have been committed at his time, and in Arabia it was this time. In Arabia there was no police force and nobody was having sticks in his hand at all. And there were no women, even the Jahili women, they were not covered and uncovered like that. So this will be coming later, the type of decadence and easy life and corruption. That's by why he did not see it.
What does Ibn Hazm say? I mean, that's your
What's
his perspective?
The same, like say, there's a meaning, if he addressed something, it does not mean that he sees him. Allah will instruct him to do the addressing. Let me give you an example. One time he was praying, alayhi salam, and then after Fajr, when he made salam, he turned immediately. Usually he turns slowly, he says, continued to speak, and said, everyone in his place. And then he surprised them with an embarrassing question. Said, is it so that some men of you, when they are intimate with their wives and do certain things, they will go tell their friends, I did that, and describe the various positions? So they were all in shock. They didn't answer. Say, and maybe some women of you do that, and then go tell other women, my husband is doing that, doing this position, and so on. And then only one girl, which was just about in poverty, stood up on her knees and lifted her head. That's narrated by a narrator from the girl and narrated by Hurairah as an observer. So it's narrated from two channels. It's quite a good narration. One of the rare things which are corroborated like that. And said, yes, Messenger of Allah, they do, and they, in Arabic there's a difference between men and female, so they, the female, and they do. Said, don't do that, because it is like a devil who met a female devil on the street and they do their sexual intercourse in front of everyone. So you are exposing your intimacy. Intimacy should be kept private and secret. Okay? So, obviously we know that the Prophet was not spying in their houses. He was completely anti-spying. Radically anti-spying. To the extreme. Even one munafiq came to him and said, belief is in with a good isnad. Because I know Ismail is obsessed with isnad. He said, Iman is in here, in the tongue. My Iman. And nifaq, hypocrisy, is in the heart. And they don't remember Allah except very little. I'm munafiq. Allah said, they don't say anything. Then he repeated it twice and say, because Allah say, put his hand in his chest, say, may Allah purify your heart, purify your tongue, and end your situations to the best of the situations. So this one became later one of the Sahabas that he saw actually carried message for the messenger to our head of states. He said, I was a head of some munafiqeen like that, and I can guide you to them, say, don't guide me to anybody, and don't expose anybody. If anyone is like you, comes to us, we will supplicate for him, like I supplicate for him. That's all. I don't want any exposure. So he was not a spy, nor he was spying, nor he was prosecuting the people there. Definitely he was not looking at their bedrooms from the door hole, whatever. So how come that he knows that he is doing like that? Allah instructed him. That's it. So when, for example, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri says, at the time of Islam, we used to give for sadaqat al-fitr, sa' of bor, wheat, barley, sha'ir, barley, or dates, or dried milk, aqit, or ta'am, any food. Ibn Hazm, for some reason, spot his mind, said this was maybe in some part in the Medina. There's no evidence that the Messenger of Allah knew about it and he permitted it or prohibited it. I say this is really a bad blunder from Ibn Hazm, because it is not the Messenger of Allah who is knowing what the people are doing. It's Allah who is knowing what the people are doing at the time of Medina and what they are doing until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Otherwise, how come he told his Messenger about these two types of people of hellfire he did not see? It's to warn us about this behavior and to tell this is going to happen, and also to warn us about the behavior that's a kabira. Because the people of the hellfire believe this is a kabira. This is a major sin. You should not have a weapon, should not have a police force beating the people in the streets. That's it. All people are having it until Yawm al-Qiyamah, and all of these will be having a nice time in hellfire.
I think this is a very big Zahiri assault that they have, and it's a big blunder.
It's a big blunder.
A lot of Zahiri.
But the blunder is also from Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who is not a Zahiri, he's a Shafi'i. He said, because Jabir ibn Abdullah, the Sahabi, was saying, I'm not aware about the issue of azl, coitus interruptus, but at the time the Quran was revealed, we were doing coitus interruptus, and the Messenger of Allah did not order us otherwise. And Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani says that Jabir is arguing that the silence from Quran, because the Quran is being revealed, revelation is coming, silence from Allah, taking that as an argument is strange. I say what Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, the great Imam al-Hafiz, saying is strange. Because who is revealing the Sharia? Who is knowing the situation of the creation? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if Allah wanted to prohibit that, he would tell me some of your companions are doing it is interrupters. And he has said, on us it is bayan, it's explanation. Not on you, Muhammad. You are just our mouthpiece. Obviously with creativity but it's on us. I am the one who will do the explanation. Yeah. I am the one who will clarify everything.
Sorry, just to sidetrack a little bit, but they also say
can you explain the whole Dhahri thing? From your perspective.
This Dhahri thing is like this, yeah. Basically, they're coming from this point of view. Okay, every time you go to Ilyas's halakha, he'll start off religiously like this. The Prophet's just a human being. He has all respect for it because it's being recorded, no doubt. Yeah, he's just a human being. He can make a mistake. He can forget. And if you say that, when he says I can forget, he's just being humble, then you're accusing him of being a liar, really.
No, he can't forget.
A humble liar.
He can't forget, yeah? No doubt. But actually he's made to forget so they can show us how to deal with forgetfulness.
Okay, yeah. So he'll say, everybody is masoom. The Prophet and the Sahaba, and the Tabi'in, and the Tabi, they're all masoom. Because he goes, do not have this illusion that the Prophet is masoom. He goes, he can make mistakes, he can forget, he can err, right? And he goes, I tell you, the only thing that he can ever get right is just uttering the revelation. Because Allah says, I will protect the dhikr. And he goes, the Sahaba are masoom as well, only on one thing, when they narrate what he narrated, because Allah said he will protect the dhikr. But they're just all human beings.
So Ilyas is masoom when he utters the dhikr?
No. Because it's all preserved now.
From the 3 generations only?
From the whole preservation of the hadith, let's say. I'm not going to go into how many generations it was written into books. Yeah, till it became... Okay.
This argument that he forgets, no doubt about that. But this forgetfulness only with the permission of Allah and the control of Allah, because Allah says clearly, سَنُقْرِئُكَ فَلَا تَنْسَ. Yes, نُقْرِئُكَ, we make you read, meaning the Quran primarily. إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ يَعْلَمُ الْجَهْرَ وَمَا يَخْفَى. We will make you read the Quran, so you will not forget. إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهِ, except Allah has permitted to happen for a purpose of Shariah, because Allah knows the hidden, the internals and the externals. Yeah. Now, from this I argue,
except if Allah wills. Illa mashallah means except if Allah.
With His permission, both creative and legislative permission. Because, let's assume, for example, let's take 2 issues. He forgets in Salah. Allah made him to forget, or he forget naturally. It's irrelevant what's the mechanism. Because we will be forgetting sometimes the rak'ah and so on. It will happen until Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's by necessity of perception and reason. Human beings will forget, and even how much you are devoted, there will be sometimes your mind is occupied with such grief and problems that you forget, you don't remember how many rak'ah you did. So he has to make sunnah how to mend the issue of salah. Do you repeat the salah from the beginning and so on? And the best way to explain, because salah itself is a practical activity, that's the reason the salah is not the details of salah are not explained in the Quran, while wudu, which is more easy to describe, is explained sufficiently well in the Quran that you could do wudu according to the Quran, but according to the Quran you cannot do the salah, which is the main purpose for the wudu anyway. So it has to be explained by acts, like how to do ruku'. The Quran says so that your back is flat, that a cup will not be falling on the side. That will be not synchronized well with the eloquence of the Quran. It doesn't work. It could be, but it would be uneloquent.
Does the hadith state that?
Oh yeah, until his back is flat, not well. So the Sahaba said that you could put a cup on his back so that the cup will not be falling to the side, unless you are hindered by a disease and so on. That's these exceptions are clear. So his act is more instructive and more educational in certain situation that needs to be done by act. So Allah made him to forget. Secondly, so in that case, another example, the example of facing the Qibla with urine and so on, and Ibn Umar said, or Jabir said, after that, a year later, I saw him facing the Qibla in open space. with or facing Bayt al-Maqdis. Ilyas would argue saying he may have forgotten. I say yes, very well possible. But if he has forgotten and Allah wanted it to be assumed from us as being forgotten and not explaining that the ruling of not facing the Kaaba is just only a matter of desirability or undesirability, not wajib al-haram as Ibn Hazm say, some Sahabi would have reminded him, like the one in the masjid reminded him. Jabir did not remind him.
But Ilyas will argue, he's already told you. He's already told you.
And also Allah told you that he's uswa hasana. They will have a contradiction there. The only way is that this is a clear explanation. Allah is present and should have clarified that. Because alayna bayan, this is Allah is keeping us in suspense. There's various options that He does an action which is against his teaching.
Yeah, but the way they tackle the uswat and hasana is like this. They'll say uswat and hasana means like he's a good example in religion. In his
religion.
In his steadfastness, in
everything. Why exclude that? This is called the principle of Allah.
Specific evidence, right? Is there any specific evidence?
No, it's just uswa hasana. Whatever he does. This conception was, or the misconception was in the mind of the Qurayshi when they told Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As in the Sahih Hadith, don't write, you are writing while you are sitting with the Allah, and he is a human, he becomes angry and so on, he may utter something which should not be written down. So he went and consulted the Messenger of Allah, say, Quraysh told me don't write everything, make sure that you write only the valid things. He said, write everything by that, what my soul is in hand, nothing comes from between them except the truth. At all. So write everything. The same with his acts. There's no indication of the Sahaba ever that they regarded any act that, like for example, in Mecca, when he was in the conquest of Mecca, he did something. I think he prayed. Usually he has the habit to make wudu for every salah, and in Mecca he did not make wudu for a specific salah. He had a wudu for every salah. And Umar asked the Messenger of Allah, I saw you today, you did something which you didn't do before. So reminding me, thought he has forgotten. You say, عمدا فعلته يا عمر. I did it deliberately يا عمر, to show that you don't need for every salah.
But Dr. Massari, with that hadith, read it again very carefully, because when I spoke to somebody about that, they said that the person who said that you did a wudu, you did a prayer with one, he goes, that's the addition of the observer, the narrator saying that, not Umar saying that. He's saying that Umar and the Prophet were having a conversation, and he said, you did something I never saw you do before, okay? And one person is saying, that's actually the narrator now adding, after listening to the conversation, that on the day of Mecca, he did all his prayers with one wudu. It's not Umar saying it. It's not Umar saying, you did your dhuhr.
But this is clear. He said to Umar that he did two salat with one wudu. Otherwise, what the whole talk about it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
And the narrator, the Sahabi, is an observant. He's observing the reality in front of him.
I'm just saying, maybe just double check that hadith, because also there's another one about
even doesn't feel anything, because the one narrator, the one who is saying that, is the one who is standing there, and the talk is about that. So he must have done that. He must at least two salah with one wudu against his habit until then. His habit until then to make wudu for every salah, even if he has wudu, because he said to many Sahaba, "Sluhum ala nur." And I said, "Amdan fa'altu ya Umar." I did it deliberately.
But I'm saying maybe later if we can just check.
Yeah, we can check this part. I mean, talk about the fine point. Let's say here Umar opened his mouth. Why didn't Jabir open his mouth? It will be done arbitrarily. That will be just things happening at the time of Salah arbitrarily.
Do you ascribe to that the hadith, which is wahi, is only hadith qawli?
No.
So you don't ascribe to that?
No, this will be a major blunder.
And that's based upon the whole issue of bayan, right? No, sorry, of balagh.
Yeah, balagh and bayan. Bayan is just clear. علينا بيانه, but the acts of the Prophet are also bayan. And they should be regarded as bayan.
Whereas the Zahiris are saying that it's only the speech.
I don't think it's Zahiris. It's not Zahiris. It's Ilyas. It's not.
It's Zahiris.
It's not relevant, but this is a mistake.
He got it.
This based on character. The Quran says clearly his uswa hasana. Whatever he does is that. Unless you have and you have
just sharpened it a bit more, maybe.
Unless you have an irrefutable evidence that's a speciality over him. Whatever he does is halal for you. There's not any doubt unless there is an evidence that's speciality for him, or that he has forgotten, and that he has forgotten must be proven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be forgotten by someone reminding him.
Because
I forgot.
I knew that the Zahiris subscribed to that before I met Ilyas.
Yeah,
I used to read.
We don't need to mention any names.
They say the Zahiris only never take the actions of the Prophet, they take the sayings. And there are some other schools of thoughts, but I think they've died out now. Whatever the Prophet says is an obligation. Whatever he does is a sunnah.
But it is not like consistent like that. For example, even what happened to the Prophet, like for example, I remember something, I think, about the washing of the Prophet after he died. So he's already dead and the deen is gone. It's complete. He said Allah would not have permitted that to happen to his Prophet, which will denigrate him after his death or something like that. All this act of the Sahaba, they made a mistake. So he got Allah protecting him. He's protected from that. So it is not clearly consistent with what they mean with that. All what I feel is that Ibn Hazm says in the hadith of Jabir, he does not attack it. Attacks the hadith is not strong, maybe, or something like that. Or says in the other hadith, say we don't know it's before and after, we must conclude it's before, according to his view. But this is all arbitrary. In reality, in the case of Jabir, it's clearly say I saw him after that 1 year doing that. This is clearly saying that a year after he told us not to face the Qibla and so on. And the only way to combine it for me, the only sensible way,
no, I think there was one where he was explaining, I think it was Abanda bin Saleh, and he was saying that Abdullah ibn Umar said, yeah, I saw him afterwards. And they're trying to attack that one and saying...
No, but Jabir, they're talking about hadith of Jabir, which he saw after him. Abdullah ibn Umar is just reporting that he saw him facing him without saying it's before or after. So that's Jabir is the one.
Oh, it's the Jabir one, yeah. And the guys are Abanda bin Saleh.
Abanda bin Saleh, yeah.
And they're attacking him, saying that...
This will end nowhere, because Abanda bin Saleh is a thiqa and is narrated in Bukhari and Muslim and so on.
I'm not going
into the technicalities, but I say this claim is
I think we have finished. No, but you have to rewind and just cut where we finished.
Absolutely, but this is good stuff. This is good stuff. This has to.
But let us clarify that he's according to what we discussed in the book of Tawheed, his utterances are ma'soom, because he doesn't utter from his desire. Okay. There's no doubt about that.
This was a big argument for about 5-6 months before you.
His acts are also ma'soom because he's uswa hasana. The meaning of uswa hasana is that he cannot do haram unless we have a clear evidence that's speaking for him, and he cannot leave a wajib. That's the minimum of uswa hasana. And he's not an uswa hasana. I'm not saying all prophets like that. They are mistaken. The people who claim that every prophet has to be uswa hasana are mistaken. Definitely not. Because they're not, none of them described as uswa hasana except Muhammad. Even Ibrahim said he was uswa hasana except his istighfar for his father. All it was permissible. But they don't take him as an example. All it was permissible. But I did not do haram there. His father gave him a promise that he will consider embracing faith, number one. And secondly, there was no injunction of Ibrahim not to make istighfar for his father. And then when Allah told him he's not going to fulfill his promise and he's enemy of Allah, Ibrahim declared himself free. I have nothing to do with him anymore. He stopped the istighfar. So Ibrahim did not make any mistake. And still illa istighfar. Actually, illa is maybe istithna muqati' walakin. So, but it was also hasana in the issue of allegiance and hostility to the kafir and being divorced and separated from them. But Muhammad is also hasana generally and absolutely. And the Sahaba were taking Ibrahim as an example for istighfar for the mushrikeen, and the Quran were in sight for a long time. And they were in a shock when the injunction came. Again, because they think somehow they were doing sin before. So again, this misconception, see, even the Sahaba minded is still stuck. They cannot get out of it. Like they show how what happened to our brothers who were drinking khamr before the prohibition have come. Nothing will happen to them. They are perfectly fine. The same would do the same. That they thought they are misguided. No, sir, Allah will not misguide any people until He clarifies for them what they should avoid or not avoid. But He did not clarify before. Also, Allah remained silent 20 years. Let them do istighfar. Let them have content. Later on, we'll give them the hammer on the head if necessary. So, No, I think this is based on a concept that as if Allah is not active in that. All of the messenger does is by instruction and by revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by reminding of him, not by his own desire. So even let's assume in the case of facing the Qibla and the hadith of Jabir valid, Ishaq from حدثنا عبان بن صالح, this is all authorities, no doubt about that. Leave the nonsense. But let's assume it is valid and he has forgotten, then Allah should have taken care that someone will remind him, because Allah will not leave us and we say uswa hasana. So what he does is permissible at least, he's not doing a haram. Or khususiyya, should tell people don't face the Qibla, I am exempt, I have a special exemption. Like he said in certain cases which he has a special exemption, clearly and evidently. So that is all. And some Sahaba thought about exemption, like for example when they asked what his ibadah, and they found it very little.
Sorry,
and
they say never follow the Prophet's actions because you don't know, he might have forgotten.
No, that's
you understand what I mean? Only follow what he says because Allah protects that.
No.
Yeah.
This is
don't follow his actions.
This is meaning they're following them because he might have not. May Allah took on him as a bayan to remind of his forgetfulness.
We know that he can forget because he's told us.
There's no doubt about that.
A human being like you.
Absolutely, the Quran tells us.
So they're saying, do not follow his actions because you never know, he might have forgotten, he might.
But the Quran says clearly, "سَنُقْرِئُكَ فَلَا تَنْسَى," will teach you, will make you read, and you don't forget. This seems to be for the Quran to start with. إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهِ. So Allah will let you forget. Allah knows, and He will let you forget.
Read. Same.
So
they'll say,
not necessarily.
They'll say same. They'll say
even the ayah, you said we made you to not forget. So he's talking about
will make you read.
But it's still speech.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily what the word qira in Arabic means. Qara in Arabic, like read in English, means also study. Like the reader in the university, the one who lectures you, is the reader. Reading is not only just reading, recitation. Reading could be more than that. Could be studying.
That sounds like a little bit of a faulty, not watertight thing what you've just said.
No, but
it's using the word qara.
No, yeah, that's an Arabic language. Why don't we take it as generality? Why we don't take it as generality?
Qira could mean repeat, read, or recite.
Recite.
Okay, read, and this is all to do
reading
with
is an action.
No,
this is all to do with.
No, I could say we will teach you, we will make you read and read the Quran, so we will not forget even the injunction to follow the injunction. Illa accept what Allah had. Could be general. فلا تنسى. Not this. فلا تنسى قراءتك. فلا تنسى. Generally.
Okay, yeah, because the Tahris would have to take everything generally,
and this restriction there.
Yeah,
I mean, I asked a long time ago about what issue of Salah, for example. Did the Prophet put his hands here? Did he put his hands here? Or did he
like various positions there.
Yeah, fine. So let's say now he makes ruku, right? But then your argument was, but the Prophet had said from his own mouth, pray as you see me pray.
Yeah.
Okay, but then the Prophet has also made in other statements even more generalities that follow my way. Now that's a statement, for example.
Yeah, but they'll say
that can mean to everything that he's ever done.
No. There was one hadith that I found, and we had to look it up in the Arabic dictionary, where he said, what is wrong with the people that they do not do, that they have a problem with what I do, or they look down on what I do.
Yeah.
And the word was do,
Yeah.
And I've forgotten what the word is now in Arabic.
No, this is where the people came and asked the wife of brother about his ibadah.
Right.
And they said he's been forgiven everything, but we should do. One said I will never marry a woman. I said I will fast without break.
But the do there
all night.
Yeah, the do there in Arabic meant more like what I establish.
No,
it's not like what my actions are.
No, another hadith said that Sayyidina Allah rebuked people, saying, how come that people are yatanazzahun? They will stay away, aloof from things which I do.
Yeah.
Which is doing, like marrying and eating and so on. Say, I am the one closest to Allah and the one most pious of you. So
yeah, but when you look up the word tanazzu, it means like establish.
No, tanazzu means just purify, staying aloof from what I have. And the hadith said, تَرَخَّصُ الْعِشَاء فَعَلَهَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. He's marrying, he's sleeping many nights and then just praying maybe only 4 rak'ah sometimes. He's most of the time he's not fasting, like he fasts several days in a row, and they made tanazzuh that they want to fast continuously. No, I think it's an assumption that Allah will leave us in limbo on this. It is very clear. Uswa hasana plus Allah will remind him if he forgets. خلاص. صدقوا فلا تنسى. I would say that's enough. إلا ما شاء الله.
But I'm saying that even from
the meaning it's an explanation. Certain situation, it's an explanation. Nobody reminds him. While another situation, they remind.
I think even from the hadith, I've read it definitely that there are certain establishing hadith. What I mean by establishing, meaning is that the premise is so general that doesn't restrict it to, to my speech.
Believe me, I've read a lot of...
No, and also this is what the Sahaba also perception was clear, like for example...
Yeah, they do have that understanding, because they will say...
And he approved that...
Okay, that you have some Sahaba who will say, oh, that's strange, you doing that. But you find it strange, me doing. Somebody who is a lot greater than me used to do that. That was the Prophet. Yeah. They used to have that mentality as well, yeah?
And he approved that.
They'll argue... Their Sahaba,
he approved that. Like for example, he was praying and then he dropped his sandals. You remember the hadith? And then he dropped their sandals, and after the salah, he said, "Why did you drop your sandals?"
But unfortunately, they'll say that's weak. But they try to use that as an argument against me and Ammar.
No, it's not.
Ilyas said, "Okay, no, honestly, Ilyas gave us that once. Yeah, he goes, he did a sly one. Yeah, he said to Hamid, tell them this: the hadith is weak." But because they take Hassan Hadith and all the rest of it, use this one against them, yeah? The Prophet took his, was praying with his sandals, and they took off his sandals, etc. But we managed to use it against them. We said, this wasn't before he came into the mosque, this was while he was praying.
He was in Salah,
yeah, it was in the Salah.
He was in the Salah, there's no doubt about it, he was in the Salah, with the Hadith. And I don't think it's that weak, like I can't check it. So I said, why did you remove your sandals? He said, you removed your sandals. So we did it. So the reason I removed it is that Jibreel came and told me there's some evil in it. And if you come to the masjid, then rub your sandals thoroughly at the door, because everything is sandy at that time. That will clean them. I did not rub them. I did not notice that there's some filth on them. So I dropped them. Because in Salah, there's no space to rub them inside the masjid, not soil the masjid. So just drop them at the side and continue with your Salah. But you don't need. So I explained that. So they asked.
Interesting.
So Jabir is very clearly saying in his facing by Bayt al-Maqdis with urine, that's his meaning. The injunction there is either abrogated or was never meant to be obligation. It was desirability only. And this is a better combination than claiming he has forgotten, and neither Allah reminded anybody, nor Jabir reminded, nor anybody reminded.
All of his Prophet's actions.
You never answered the question I asked initially, which was a guy has decided to believe in Islam, he's a new Muslim, or he's come back into the religion. How does he find out that ruling? Does he just do it to
no. After the Messenger of Allah, the deen is complete, and all rulings have come, including the general.
So therefore, every action that you do
after the Prophet, you have to ask about everything. Yes,
everything.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
So can I pluck my eyebrows?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, but how do I know?
It's you ask the scholar if you don't know. Yeah, you do the general ruling and ask the scholar about his evidence.
No, but can I scratch my scrotum, for example?
Yeah, you can.
No, but I mean, these are questions.
I have no doubt about that. As I'm saying, after the Messenger of Allah, because at the time he prohibited questioning, because the Shariah was still coming. When he went, the Shariah is complete. The basic ruling of the majority of action is permissibility. So you can be relaxed that the Sharia does not have too many injunctions. You can know that, and it has to be has a clear. For example, if you ask a scholar, you have to be knowing these usuls. Ask a scholar, say, can I scratch, for example, my feet? He said, there's no hadith permitting that. So no, you are wrong. I'm asking if there's a hadith prohibiting it or any injunction. He said, no, I'm not aware about. So it must be in the basic ruling of permissibility. That's the meaning of that ruling. But you have to ask. Time to time you don't ask. Because he said clearly, I ordered you and I prohibited you, that's enough. Anything else, do it. Don't come to me back. And that made an enormous amount of almost all human activities went in the domain of permissibility. Without exception. He declared that what he clearly outclassified out of that. But now, we know that all human action have been addressed. Although the majority of them are permissible, we know that, but we know which one as non-scholars. We can guess, slowly you get to recognize a common sense that the action related to your body, to your hair shaving and so on will be permissible. You will be many people will be surprised to know that the only prohibition is the area of qaza, that you remove some hair completely, like Mr. T or something. This is qaza. This is definitely prohibited.
No, but for example, someone who wants to make
all kind of hairdressers are permissible.
No, but Dr. Massari, someone who wants to make an investment, they decide that they want to buy a house or they want to invest in the stock market.
This is a major one. Yeah, they will have to ask.
They have to ask.
Yeah, everything. But what
if they don't ask and they just say
no? They're sinful. Then if they deliberately, they know yes, the ruling of Allah is that. But they can say my judgment from that what I know that's permissible. If he has enough knowledge, if he doesn't have, he to ask. And usually the people ask. And usually you ask once in a lifetime, because how many investments are there? Stock market, this 4, 5, 6 type of investment. You will ask about that. It's very investment. You will not ask about scratching and things like that, because it's very obvious.
I can remember asking you a question.
So the issue of birthday, the Prophet's birthday, is that why it's permissible? Because the Prophet never forbid it.
Yeah, that's number one. And secondly, the usual argument of some Salafi who claim to be Salafi is that the argument that what the Prophet left or did not do, we don't